Coming up on Tech Talk, we're going to talk about things that you can upgrade on your computer to enhance your performance. I've been upgrading and building computers for about 20 years now. And a lot of people ask what's the best way to speed up their machines. Well, this is a little tutorial about how to do a couple of those things that you can enhance your performance. And some are easy, some are a little more difficult. But I hope this helps. We'll talk about upgrading the CPU, the RAM, and the hard drives. Okay, let's talk about RAM. By the way, RAM stands for Random Access Memory. Your computer's memory. Now, if you want to think about RAM, the easiest way to describe it is, let's say that you have a very small desk and you want to do some work. You put that work on that desk and you run out of desk space. So you need a bigger desk. That's like RAM. The bigger desk you have, the more work you can do. So the more RAM you have in the machine, the more applications you can have running at once. One of the best performance kicks you can get is RAM upgrade. If you put more RAM in a machine, which is the easiest upgrade to do, by the way, it will give you a lot better performance than almost everything else except for changing the hard drive to an SSD, a solid state drive, which we'll get into next. Now let's talk about hard drives. There's two types of hard drives. There's mechanical and there's SSDs. Mechanicals have little platters, much like a record player, if you can remember what those were. They have platters with heads that can read the data up and down these polished plates. Okay, it spins. So it's a mechanical spinning. That's usually what fails in a computer, especially when they get older, because when your data gets scrambled all over the hard drive, if you don't defrag it once in a while, the system has to access the memory, and sometimes if it's a big hard drive, it has several platters. So it has to find that on different drives, and of course it's spinning all the time. Now, an SSD is a solid state drive, much like what's on your phone. Hold on, I know, all you geeks out there, I missed one important drive, and it's a hybrid drive. Where you take a mechanical drive and an SSD, and they combine them, so you get the best of both worlds. You get the speed and performance of an SSD, and you get the capacity of having a large hard drive. What they do is they take all your operating system and the applications you use the most, it moves up to the fast SSD, and then for storage capability, you have your regular mechanical hard drive, which I've owned a couple of those. In fact, it's in my iMac, and it works very well. Let's talk about what hard drives actually do. If you think of your hard drive as a file system, and the big file cabinets that you store stuff at work, well, that's what your hard drive does. It stores everything, and the more hard drive space you have, obviously, the more applications and files you can store on. So when your system starts outgrowing it, you need to get bigger hard drive. And just a note for some more geek stuff, yes, there's different variations of SSDs. There's all kinds of new ones now that are super small and super fast. The other thing I wanted to say, if you really want to do some of these things, what I've done is right after the segments, I have inserted a link to an upgrade of RAM, actually a change of hard drive to an SSD. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to change the CPU in a Dell 620 computer. And if you're too geeked out at that point, then stop watching, and I'll have the inserts on the rest. Thanks. CPUs are where all the silicone is that you hear about. And the CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. In other words, think of it as the brains of the computer. It does all the mathematics. The computer language is binary, so it's all zeros and ones. So that's what the processor does. I think of it as like an adding machine. 0 is off, 1 is on, so it's a switch. So as the ones and zeros are going through, it hits the switches and then it does the math. So that's what it does, the Central Processing Unit. And really there's a few manufacturers. The major ones out there are Intel, I'm sure you've heard of, and of course AMD. Advanced Micro Devices. Okay, it's time for the geeky stuff, the stuff that I was telling you about. I'm going to change the processor in this Dell 620 machine. It has an i3, and I'm going to put an i5 in there, which adds 2 more cores to it and more cache, and it's just a faster chip. First, remove the heatsink, and then after you remove the heatsink, you want to take and get off the thermal compound that's on there. It helps dissipate the heat off the CPU. And use some rubbing alcohol. I use a towel, wipe it off clean. Once you get it all wiped off, then you want to just take the CPU out of the socket and actually get some dust away from it too. And you want to just, when you open this up, you want to grab, there's a little lever there, and then you just flip it out. You want to grab it only by the sides. Don't touch the back of the CPU or the pins that are on there. That's the i3. Now I'm going to change it with the i5, and you just put it back in the same way. The other one came out, has these little slots in there. Just hold it by the edges again, put it back in, and then the same thing, just do it in reverse, put down the plate, and then it's got that little secure rod in there. You want to just push that down, make sure it'll pop up sometimes like that, like it just did for me. You just want to push it back down, make sure it's locked into place, and it should be fine. There it is, locked into place. Now you want to put some thermal compound back on it, so you just squirt a little thing, maybe the size of a pea on there, and then you want to take a credit card or a piece of plastic. I think I use my wife's Pampered Chef cleaner, works out really good. Little piece of plastic, and smooth it out, get a nice coat on there, reinstall the fan on top that you've cleaned. 4 screws, make sure you got it nice and tight. You want to alternate it so you don't have it warped or cockeyed on there. And by all means, make sure that you replace the CPU fan connection. Make sure it's in there and it's very secure, because usually your system will just shut down if it boots up without a fan as soon as it gets heated up, but you just don't want to take the chance of locking up your processor and overheating it. And it does it. Of course, put your side back on and you're all set to go.